A little status update here on the A&L prototype cars. They are about 95% complete. The only thing that's left is I got to finish the rear wing on this, and I sent the body out to get painted, and I got to put decals on that when it comes back, and then they're done. That's it. I can finally write these off as done and then move on to whatever next set of projects I have. So what did I do for this buggy since the last time? I basically mounted the electronics. So I tried to keep it as period correct as possible. So that meant, well, for this one specifically, this also had to be event correct because this chassis was the actual one used at the 91 Worlds. So I had to make sure I had the correct receiver that Chris Alec used, which was interestingly a Novak AM 27 megahertz receiver, and the speed control was a 410 M1C, but it was the I think the Stealth Edition, which had or a version of the Stealth Edition that had the wires coming out of the top of the speed control like this. So there were a few different versions of the M1C. I have another version on that car I'll get into in a second. So I believe these are the correct electronics. Because I had to backfill those didn't come with the car. He must have changed the electronics after the event. He ran peak motors, so I'm pretty sure the Rick's Pick motor would be the correct motor, which I got for both of these. That's a 13-turn double, which would be appropriate for two-wheel drive mod buggy for these cars of that time. So this is basically it compared to last time. So the only thing I don't have are batteries, but I really don't have any interest in mounting nickel cadmium batteries on this. Tires are original tires from the original event. I think I showed those last time. I did have to fab a set of wing mounts here using 3/16 inch music wire. This is really good stuff, by the way. And I had to go off of the one picture that I have where the wing is mounted, so I can't see exactly what the shape of the wing mount was. Given the way the wing was mounted on this car, I'd have to assume he did something similar here, where the wing wire went up and then around and then back and then down, which meant that he probably mounted the wing first and then bent the wire after the wing was mounted, which would be a real pain in the butt to take the wing off, because he'd have to basically cut the wing wire to take it off. So to avoid doing that, I just made two separate bends, and depending on how high I need the wing to be, you know, or where the actual wing mounts are going to go on the wing, I could just rotate these in or out a little bit. I did notice from the picture, if you look closely, it looks like these wing mounts aren't standing perfectly straight up. They are pushed in slightly, but the real problem I'm having is figuring out exactly where on the wing these wing mounts go. There's not enough contrast in the image for me to work that out. So I'm just going to have to make a best guess as to where to place these wing mounts. And also what the shape of the wing mounts is. I think it's these associated wing mounts. I'm not 100% sure, but you know, I tried to do some like very simple image processing on the image, and it kind of looks like these you know, teardrop shaped wing mounts. So I'm guessing it's these wing mounts, and so I'll put those on. And the type of wing is different from this one. This here is like a ribbed wing, which is an A&L wing. This is also an A&L wing. It's just a 6-inch, you know, standard wing, if you will. It's not ribbed or anything, but this is the wing that was used. So this came with the car. It's actually a set of two wings. So I just cut one out, masked it off. Well, cleaned it, masked it, painted it white because it was a white wing, and I'm trying to get the exact decals that went on the car, on the wing, to mount on that. So those are incoming, and then the wing will be done, and I can mount it. And then this part is done. This car I can put away. So that's the first car. And I figured I would also work on the second car. I may have shown a brief video of this. Actually, I don't remember. I think I made a comment on what my plans were for it, but I don't think I made an actual build video for this. So basically, this builds up almost exactly the same as that car. This is a shorter wheelbase chassis. And there is another mounting post here in the front, in the center of the front brace, which you don't have here. And the steering rack does have these little, I think, Ackerman plates sticking out of it for slightly different steering geometry. But otherwise, it's almost the exact same car. I did have to backfill more parts and materials for this car than I did for that car. This is, let's say, about 90% original parts, if you include the electronics, because I had to get electronics for this. But just for the mechanical stuff, it's like 95 to 99% original mechanical stuff. On this one, I had to get new shocks, wheels, tires, which, you know, I wanted to do these Yokomo wheels. I thought they would look kind of interesting. And the thing with the shocks, the reason I had to get new shocks was because I only had 3 shocks. I was missing the 4th shock. And same thing for the springs. I had to find the right kinds of springs to use that kind of replicate these springs here. So, by the way, even though these are associated shocks, the springs themselves are a wider bore. These are probably Kyosho springs, and because the spring cups appear to be Kyosho spring cups. So I went through all my old Kyosho springs, trying to look through to see if I have a similar type of spring and spring tension that I could put on this car. And I couldn't quite find exactly the same thing, but I found something that's, I think, is pretty close. And then these are just, you know, RC10T gold body shocks, and I just put the aluminum shock caps on them, and that's basically that. I tried to keep the electronics similar, so I have the same Rick's Pick motor. Okay, so this one I got from my friend Brandon. This one is what came with the car when Chris sold it to me. So I just want to make sure I have a matched motor. Gearbox is matched, fluorescent yellow, very cool. And then let's see, for the electronics, so this is also a Novak 410 M1C. And you see Stealth Series. So the wires do come out of the top. And then this one here, it says 410 M1C, but it doesn't say Stealth Series on it. It's kind of interesting, although I do believe this is an actual Stealth Series. This one is ever so slightly different. So for example, the dial here for current doesn't have that little orange thing sticking out of it, so that's one difference. I think there's maybe also another difference with where the fuse is located, not totally sure, but nonetheless, both 410 M1Cs. One thing I did not do to either of these two, which Chris had done to his speed controls, was to cut the switch and then hardwire the positive and negative terminals of the switch together. So that way when you plug the battery in, it turns on automatically. Some racers tended to do that. I don't want to ruin these beautiful and perfectly good speed controls. So I kept the switch on there, which you could say is not, you know, a completely faithful recreation of the car as it existed at the time, but I don't want to ruin this nice speed control. So I kept the switch on there and zip tied it to the chassis. Did the same thing here, okay? And then this one came with this Dean's connector here, and I didn't want to tear this open and rewire everything because this has Novak original wire. I only have so much of that stuff. So I figured I'll just keep the Dean's connector on there. It's perfectly fine. And then I'll just, you know, zip tie that to the chassis. So you can imagine a version of this where you'd have your cells mounted and you have, you know, another set of wires coming from the battery, and you just connect to here with a Dean's connector, which is period correct, and you can use it that way. This one is the NER3 FM, so this has an FM receiver, but it's still a Novak style receiver. This is the one that came with this car when I got it, but it's not the exact receiver that was used at the Worlds. That's the exact type of receiver that was used at the Worlds. So little differences there, but still period correct. And then also I wanted to make sure to get a period correct servo. He ran Futaba servos at the time, so I had to find a Futaba period correct servo. The S9401 would be the appropriate type. It went by a different model name, which was renamed to the 9401. but it's the same type of high-end servo you'd have in 1991. Okay, so I got that, mounted that, that's all good. And these are JC Racing Products Yokomo wheels, the 870 sort of deep dish style for the rear, and you get the narrow like RC10 front wheels with these wheel hubs. These are reproduction wheel hubs, and you'll note that I did it this way because on this car these are work style Yokomo rims which have 0 offset, and so the wheel hub has an extra spacer on it so that you can run these 0 offset rims. If you want the same total rear width without that offset spacer, you have to run the deeper dish style 870 style rims. So I only have one set of those spacers, so I figured, okay, well, why don't I just use these rims and use pink rims while I'm at it, and call it a day. I think it looks really nice. I wasn't sure how it would turn out, but I think between the pink motor, the pink wheels, and he also gave me, he painted one of the motor covers pink there, I think that's really cool. I actually think this probably looks a little bit better than that car, but I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about it, but I like it quite a lot. One thing I've had trouble with, though, is getting this wing to look level. This is the original wing that came with the car. I have a couple of these. I could just paint one up and mount it, but I wanted to keep this one on there because it's, you know, what he had used when he was running this car. But it is kind of crooked and bent and used clearly. And when I made the extra wing mounts, because the original wing mount for it snapped when I tried to adjust it. It's over here somewhere. I just had to make new wing mounts, and I had to get those bent just right so that when you look at it head on, at least the leading edge of the wing looks like it's, you know, level with respect to the shock tower on either side. But you can see even when you do that, the rear of the wing bends up differently on this side than it does on this side. That could just be the actual plastic of the wing itself, you know, getting beat up or distorted over time. That's not really something I can control unless I put a brand new wing on there. So I'm kind of undecided as to whether I want to keep this wing on or, you know, mount a completely new wing. Maybe I'll do that just to make it look a little cleaner. But for now, I'm just going to keep this on here. And this car's done. So what's next? Well, I do have to put together the reproduction A&L car that Jeff Millar sent me. That's sort of the prototype or the first pass at a reproduction model. That's on the list of cars to build. I have a lot of projects that I'm going to get around to this year, so I don't know exactly when I'll get to that. But these are almost done, right? Mount the wing, get the body, do the decals, maybe put a new wing on this, and that's it. So I had a lot of fun restoring these. This was probably definitely one of my more challenging restorations, dealing with very little information and trying to reverse engineer a lot and figure out a lot. But I think I did a pretty good job. I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys learned some things about it. And yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.